Hey everyone, it's John Heath here again for Milton Rose Learning with another Let's Learn lesson on Dulce Et Decorum Est. Okay, one of the key poems that many students study around the world actually. So today then it is into the trenches of World War One. So we're going to look at some key context, just three of the key points that you need to know about this war poem. Then we'll have a little poetry reading, dare I say, so I'll do my best to kind of read that out for you to get a feel for the phonology of the poem. And then we'll look at some of the key annotations that we feel that you need to know and to unpick in your anthologies, and then obviously use in any exam or kind of class-based essay. Okay then, right, let's dive in then. Now, as you can see from the images, we are very much in the trenches of World War One here, and you do need to know your history. You need to know what was going on at the time that Wilfred Owen was writing the poem. So let's isolate three of the key contextual points for you. Now, the first one is obviously the reality of trench warfare. So this was written during World War One. The poem reflects the absolutely brutal conditions of trench warfare, exposing the exhaustion, the mud, gas attacks, chemical warfare effectively, and suffering endured by the soldiers. This was absolutely horrific, one of the worst wars in human history, and you must know about trench warfare. And it's very interesting anyway, so I'll be researching that and Googling that kind of quite heavily before I did the poem. Then the pacifist or anti-war message. So Wilfred Owen actually started the war quite positive about going to conflict with Germany, but he quickly was disabused of those notions. So he now in this poem challenges the patriotic ideal of war as noble and glorious, and he directly opposes the jingoistic propaganda put out by the British government that encouraged young men to enlist. This is very much a pacifist poem, and it's very important that you understand that. Then the old lie. What was the old lie? Let's just pop it there. I'll try and get Wilfred Owen in a little bit. So the poem's title and closing lines reference a Latin phrase, Dulce Et Decorum Est pro patria mori. So it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. That's what that means. So Owen is denouncing that as a dangerous lie told to manipulate the masses and to get young soldiers to basically enlist in the war. Okay, and he's saying that we're just lying to them, so we need to be more honest. Okay, so those are three of the most powerful bits of context that you should know for this poem. Okay, going into it. Now let's have a little bit of a poetry reading. Okay, yeah, I'll try and get it all on one if we can, and I'll read this out. Okay. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. The soldiers are returning to kind of to safety. Men marched asleep. Men had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame. All blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. So they're about to get gassed now, hence the image on the right hand side. Gas, gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Someone hasn't got their gas mask on in time. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. So he's had to watch while someone died from chemical warfare, from sucking in the gas. Last stanza. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his his hanging face like a devil sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, this is as the soldier died, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud, of vile incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, You would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, Dulce Et Decorum Est, pro patria mori. Very shocking kind of poem about obviously the soldiers having to survive through a gas attack, and one of the soldiers obviously couldn't get their gas mask on in time, and they ultimately died a horrible death, one of the worst ways to die in this war. So it's, as we can see, a very angry poem and a very pacifist poem against the horrors of World War One and also the horrors of chemical warfare as well. So if we were diving into that poem, and if I was kind of analysing it with you in class, we would be making annotations, and these are some of the kind of key annotations that I would be making. Okay, so in stanza 1, you've got stanza 1 there at the top. I won't read it out again for you. I don't think you need to, but the annotations we can go through. So there's a simile there. So, like old beggars under sacks, a beggar obviously meaning someone who's got no money and absolutely bankrupt. So, in my mind, that kind of that simile, a knock-kneed, like coughing like hags, like old women, strips the soldiers of any heroism and it dehumanises them. Okay, it shows them to be actually weak figures. They're not these heroic figures of the propaganda reels. Okay, haunting flares, that phrase as well. Now, flares were like fired above the trenches to kind of light up no man's land and to light up the kind of the opposing trenches. So ghostly, ominous imagery, constant threat of death, because you're thinking if the enemy's firing flares above you, what's coming next? Is it artillery? Is it a gas attack like here? Is it a human wave attack like over the top coming towards your trench? Horrendous. Also the phrase distant rest. It's ironic, there is no true rest here, and until you go home, you are dealing with death every single day, potentially. Only brief relief from battle. A lot of soldiers in the trenches, were bored and things like that, but there was always in the back of your mind this constant tension of death. Okay, those are some nice annotations. Then we've got stanza 2. There we go. So the phrase marched asleep, I think, is a kind of oxymoron effectively, but it shows the exhaustion and loss of humanity here. You just kind of you're running on empty basically. Bloodshod is a graphic metaphor. It shows that some of the soldiers' feet were covered not in the leather of a boot, but were just covered with blood. They had no boots on. They may have lost them. So again, it draws out that sympathy from the reader. Overwhelmed senses, so deaf to the shells, too tired to notice even danger. There were some cases in the war where soldiers would fall asleep from sheer exhaustion and then be blown up by artillery shells. That did happen, so it shows that the senses of the soldiers have been absolutely numbed, almost anaesthetised, if I can put it that way. 5.9s, so German artillery shells, 5.9s, so it's a reminder of the ever-present threat. And when one of those artillery shells hits, if it hit anywhere near you, you'd just be pretty much vaporized. It was just kind of like, they'd never find your body again. So we're talking an extremely dehumanizing mode of warfare here. Then we have the Volta, the kind of turning point, really, stanza 3, the gas attack. So sudden urgency, the gas, the kind of repetition there, the use of exclamatory sentences, contrasts with the slow and heavy opening. Ecstasy of fumbling, brilliant writing, great phrase. It shows the chaotic panic, the irony in the word ecstasy, because ecstasy is meant to be pleasurable, but it's not, and they're just all fumbling around to get those gas masks on very, very quickly. The similes, like a man in fire or lime, it shows that the poor victim of the gas attack, he's flailing around, running around, almost like he's been lit on fire. Okay, so he's just flailing around and it's burning imagery, extremely powerful. Stanza 4, I would pick out probably green light and green sea. It's surreal, unnatural imagery, almost like they're drowning in this kind of gas, absolutely horrendous. The extended metaphor as well, drowning, because it kind of carries on a little bit. Link connotes obviously suffocation, and it's likened to being pulled underwater. When this green gas, I'm assuming it's kind of chlorine gas, when it kind of swooped into the trenches and stuff, you can't escape. There's nowhere to go. You've just got to kind of like walk your way through it, almost like walking through water. It shows the inescapability of chemical warfare. Okay, then we have stanza 5. I would pick out, and these notes aren't comprehensive or exhaustive, but they provide a really good starting base for you. PTSD, the speaker haunted me in their dream, or in my dreams. That is what we call post-traumatic stress disorder now, but at the time they didn't really understand the full horror of the mental anguish of this, but that's what it is. You can research that as a condition. The tricolon, guttering, choking, drowning, that rule of 3, the relentless horror. And also, if you're very posh, it mimics like the gasping breaths of this soldier as they died. Okay, it reflects the rhythms of their breathing. Then the final stanza here, where we have the lie. What would I pick out there? I think my friend. I think it's a direct address to the reader and calling you, my friend. It creates this accusatory, kind of ironic tone. Children, and then desperate glory. Children who are desperate for glory. It's the naivety of youth lured into the war, just like Wilfred Owen. He wanted to go to war, and then he was like, "Oh my life, this is horrendous." So it reflects his biography in some ways. And the old lie as well at the end, it exposes that patriotic propaganda. It's not sweet to die for your country. It's the worst thing in the world. That's what Wilfred Owen is trying to say in this poem, and try and subvert and deconstruct that propaganda narrative around the war. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed that. I really kind of enjoy Wilfred Owen and World War One. I think it's fantastic. So what we've done is we've gone over some of the key contextual elements that you need to know. We had a little poetry reading together, which is always quite nice. And then we teased apart some of the key poetic annotations which need to go into your anthologies. Okay. So it just remains to say, obviously, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and please do tap the bell icon to never miss another Let's Learn video again. If you want to discuss anything about World War One or Wilfred Owen, please do. Just pop it in the comments and we'll always do our best to reply. So just remains to say, obviously, hopefully you've enjoyed that. Keep going with your poetry studies. Take care, and we will see you soon.